You've been called intense, too deep, too analytical, scarily accurate, maybe even psychic. Which is funny, because you're not moving objects with your mind, you're just noticing what other people ignore. Let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone and within seconds you knew how their next mistake would unfold? Not because you're judging, but because the pattern was already forming. That reflex, that instant mapping of motive, weakness, and likely outcome, is what we're calling the Minerva Instinct. Not loud power, quiet inevitability. But here's the tension. If you see patterns this quickly, why do relationships still exhaust you? Hold that question. We'll come back to it. You teach without trying. People come to you for clarity, not comfort. You don't hand out encouragement like candy. You reorganize chaos. When someone vents, you're not just listening. You're tracking repetition. You're noticing what they avoid. You're hearing what their behavior keeps confessing. And when you finally speak, it lands. Because your sentence is built from 20 silent observations. But here's the shadow side. You can become addicted to being right, not externally, internally. There's a quiet satisfaction in predicting outcomes, in watching the pattern confirm itself. And if you're not careful, that can harden into distance, because it's easier to analyze someone than to be vulnerable with them. Precision without softness becomes isolation. Next, you can detect incompetence almost instantly. Not loud incompetence, confident incompetence. Vague claims, overcomplicated language hiding simple confusion, certainty without structure. Your system flags it immediately. And you rarely confront it. You mentally adjust access. You step back. You downgrade trust. This isn't arrogance. It's risk assessment. You've trusted unstable thinking before. You've watched things collapse. Now your mind scans for structural integrity. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes what you label as incompetence is simply a different processing style. Your strength is pattern compression. Not everyone thinks in compressed maps. If you forget that, discernment turns into quiet superiority. And superiority, even silent, creates disconnection. Let's talk about quiet dominance. You don't fight for attention. You regulate yourself. And humans instinctively orient toward regulation. The calm nervous system feels powerful. Your pauses carry weight. Your silence makes others talk more. They fill the space. They expose themselves. And when you speak, it feels final. But dominance is not the goal. Stability is. And here's the paradox. The more stable you are, the more people project onto you. They test you, provoke you, try to get a reaction. Because if you react, they can categorize you. If you don't, you remain undefined. And undefined feels threatening. The danger? Staying silent too long. Observation without expression becomes withdrawal. And withdrawal slowly erodes connection. Now the truth spike. You tolerate a lot, not because you're passive, because you're collecting evidence. You watch contradictions repeat. You track disrespect patterns. You measure intent over time. Then, one day, calmly, you say a sentence that ends the illusion. Not dramatic, not loud, just accurate. And people feel exposed. Because you're not reacting. You're concluding. But here's what no one talks about. Dropping the truth spike costs you something. After clarity comes distance. After exposure comes shift. Sometimes you lose the relationship. Sometimes you lose the role you played in someone's life. And that's why you delay it. Not because you're unsure, because you know it's irreversible. Your standards aren't high, they're specific. Consistency, accountability, reciprocity, basics. But in environments where vagueness is survival, specificity feels threatening. You don't tolerate loops. If someone keeps repeating the same behavior with new explanations, you call it data. And here's the deeper layer. Your standards aren't about moral superiority. They're about nervous system safety. When you lower them, you become the emotional translator, the stabilizer, the unpaid therapist, and eventually the exhausted one. Specific standards are self-preservation, not ego. Finally, you live between worlds, logical and intuitive, structured and symbolic. You respect evidence, but you also trust the signal beneath it. That duality makes you hard to manipulate, but it also makes you hard to categorize. Logical people think you're too intuitive. Intuitive people think you're too analytical. And sometimes you feel slightly alone in that middle space. Now let's resolve the opening tension. If you see patterns so early, why this connection still feel draining? Because insight does not replace intimacy. Mapping someone is not the same as meeting them. The Minerva Instinct is powerful, but it must be paired with one decision. When do I observe, and when do I engage? When do I analyze, and when do I risk being known? True mastery isn't predicting the ending. It's choosing whether you want to be part of the story at all. And that's a different skill entirely.